Well, good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom, and we are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. And what an exciting show we have on store for this Friday morning edition. We'll be talking with Dr. Stephen Coleman. At the bottom of the hour, we'll be talking about the Unity in the Community Rally coming up tomorrow at Wisner Park. So that's in this hour. In the 7 o'clock hour, it's Friday with Phil. Phil Palmisano will be joining us, the Assemblyman. We look forward to that. Yesterday, speaking of Assemblyman, we had Assemblyman-elect Joe Sempolinski on the program. And this came in right at the end of the program, and to the viewer who sent it in, I did not read it live on the air, so I want to do so now, but I did let Joe know. It says, great interview. Merry Christmas to you, Joe, to you and Joe. So thank you. Merry Christmas to you. And Joe says Merry Christmas as well. Speaking of having a Merry Christmas, I can't think of a better way to celebrate Christmas than taking part in the Salvation Army Telethon right here on Frankly Speaking. This is our second annual. Hard to believe. We had a blast last time, and this time is going to be just as good. We got great music from the Crystal Chords. We've got great music from Doc Possum. We're just going to have a blast with some special guests. And get this, the donations made from the telethon, up to $5,000, are going to be matched by an anonymous donor that watches Frankly Speaking, and again, showing the power of this amazing audience. So please, I'm asking you to donate to the telethon. There's a couple different ways to do it. And by the way, it's next Friday. So it's a week from today, obviously 6 to 8, all 2 hours. It's going to be filled with music, guests, fun times. Well, if you'd like to donate, I'm going to have a QR code that day. You can come down, of course, say hi, put money right in the kettle, or you can text MATCH, the word MATCH, M-A-T-C-H, to, write this number down, 31333. So again, text MATCH to 31333, and I believe you can do that now. As a matter of fact, there's a special website made just for this event on December 13th, but it is up now. So again, we're trying to hit that $5,000 goal, so it'll be matched. It'll be $10,000 to Salvation Army. We fell short last year. You've heard me talk about it numerous times on this program. And a lot of it, if I'm being honest with you, is people just don't carry around cash anymore. So the kettles are a great part of the Christmas tradition. You hear it, and I joke about this, but even after Christmas is over, when I'm walking down the street, it's almost like you can still hear the bells ringing. It's become synonymous with Christmas, but people, and I don't blame anybody, they just don't carry cash. So now there are a few options where you can scan. On certain kettles, you can scan your credit card, and I believe it's $5, $10, or $20 you can donate. There's that option, but here we're going to be accepting cash. And I will say, if you can't make it, I understand you want to sit at home in your pajamas, having a cup of coffee, watching Frankly Speaking, and you don't want to come out in the cold from 6 to 8 next Friday. That's fine. Let me know. Drop me a text, or if you see me in the window, knock on the door. I'd be glad to take your donation, and we'll put it in the kettle on Friday. I'm going to get a small kettle here for the desk at some point. Meant to do it yesterday, where we can put the money in and collect it for next Friday. So I just wanted to mention that. I haven't mentioned it a lot on the program, but we're super excited behind the scenes, working very diligently to make this another great telethon for the Salvation Army. Okay, another comment from a viewer, and thank you, by the way, for that last viewer so I could make that plug. Comment from a viewer: with Biden and his cognitive decline, is he truly able to make a decision of who should be pardoned? That's a great question. My thought is, from the beginning, not even with the exception of Hunter necessarily, my opinion on this is, from the beginning, it's everybody behind the scenes. It's not Biden making the crucial decisions. Yes, he, I'm sure, is a part of the discussion, but making the crucial decisions, such as in the case of Hunter Biden, in my opinion, was Jill Biden. Jill Biden pushing her husband to pardon Hunter. There was reports behind the scenes that was the case, anonymous sources close to the information, saying that he was hesitant. She was the last push to say, no, you've got to do this. So no, we are going to talk about the partners. We don't have a lot of time this morning to get into everything I'd like to get into, but we are definitely going to talk about the pardons because what they're speculating he could do next. And again, to your point, and I think many people in this audience have made it in the past, from the beginning, it hasn't been Biden. It's been the people around him, the kind of the Obama administration leftovers, which are really interesting because there's a piece, it kind of, I didn't mean to go to this next, but it's a good segue. It kind of shocked me this morning, and it's by Reuters. Obama gave a speech, and so this headline makes sense. Obama hails the power of pluralism as some Democrats push to pass the torch, that perhaps the Obama era is over. And that was said after the election, that with the victory of Trump, it was a signal that the Obama era of the Democrat Party is over. Now, I don't know if I fully accept that, but I believe it is at least in the beginning days, if you will, of it being over. So in his speech, he said the alternative is what we've seen here in the United States and in many democracies around the globe, not just more gridlock, not just more public cynicism, but an increased willingness on the part of politicians and their followers to violate democratic norms, to do anything they can to get their way. I wonder if he's referencing lawfare or trying to keep Trump off the ballot in certain states, that kind of violation of democratic norms, or is he thinking of something else? I'd just be curious. So he discussed the power of pluralism with thousands of live and online attendees at this event called Democracy Forum, not to be confused with Unity in the Community that Dr. Coleman's holding, that is also celebrating democracy. Building lasting majorities that support justice require framing our issues, our causes, what we believe in terms of we, and not just us and them, he said. But that does not mean rolling over when opponents abuse power. He said that's a problem, and when that happens, we have to fight for what we believe in. While Obama remains in high demand on the campaign trail, some in the party are calling for a crop of younger leaders to take the baton after Harris lost every battleground state and the popular vote, and Democrats lost control of the House and the Senate. Quote, I think he'd be the first to agree, David Axelrod, the former senior advisor to Obama, said. I think he would say he's run his race and we need others to step up. Time marches on, and I think he would say we need a whole array of leaders. And there are young leaders in the Democrat Party who are dynamic and very much in touch with the times, who can step up and play a big role. Representative Seth Moulton said, I've always been an advocate for a new generation of leadership in the party, and I think that people are yearning for that. It doesn't mean that Obama's magic is totally gone, but Obama's not going to be a future president. Obama's not running for Senate. We need to hear from newer voices that can better represent the fears and struggles that Americans face today. Which is interesting they say that now when they didn't focus on the fears and struggles. As a matter of fact, as Joe Semplinsky so eloquently put it yesterday, they laughed when you talked about your fears and your struggles. They would say, as I've mentioned so many times, on page 38 of the statistics from this bureaucratic group, the economy is actually doing really good. So you're kind of nuts if you think that we're not in a boom time. And that's why they're now trying to say, oh no, things are looking much better. So Trump is going to be inheriting a great economy. Well, again, I would just point to, as I said, like a broken record on this program, so many times, that just look at your grocery bill. Do you believe the Don Lemons of the world, and I point to him because he was one of the people that was so blatant about it in that video when someone said, I can't afford my bills, and he literally pulls out paperwork from some government agency saying, no, look at these stats. When it comes to inflation and the cost of living, there's no denying it. The politicians, just like with public safety, let's face it, as we're dealing with that in New York and throughout the whole country, there's no denying it. They can say, well, hey, no, things are actually really good. You're really wrong-headed. Well, we're living it. It's a lived experience, to use their term. So this idea that now they're saying, and which is interesting, they're trying to get rid of the Obama era. So maybe that article right after Election Day was accurate, that the Trump victory is the death to the Obama era. But to say now, again, Representative Seth Moulton, Democrat from Massachusetts, saying that we need to hear from newer voices that can better represent the fears and struggles that Americans face today. Why didn't you listen the last 4 years? And I'm not speaking, I don't know about Seth Moulton specifically, but the Democrat Party. Listen to those fears and struggles instead of mocking those fears and struggles. Still mocking as of, and I mentioned it with the former congressman, mentioned it 2 days ago, and I think it was the DNC, and I wish I had it in front of me. They were mocking you because they were putting up, again, some chart or graph about how great the economy is, saying, oh, but you couldn't afford eggs? Mocking you again for your vote this time, and that you actually had struggles when it came to living and being able to afford to live. All right. Thank you for all these great comments from viewers, letting me segue into stories I wanted to get to. We will be talking with Assemblyman Phil Palmisano in the 7 o'clock hour, and it's going to be about an array of topics, but we obviously are going to talk about energy, and I thought this would be a good way to kind of kick off that discussion. We're not going to focus on this too much, but just because I know that's going to be a big topic this morning. Congressman Nick Langworthy, he led a letter calling on Governor Hochul to end the opposition to the Northern Access Pipeline and key natural gas infrastructure projects. He led members of the New York and Pennsylvania congressional delegations in sending a letter to New York Governor Kathy Hochul expressing concern over the cancellation of the Northern Access Pipeline, a proposed $500 million investment in natural gas infrastructure that would have created thousands of good-paying jobs. The letter calls on Governor Hochul to reconsider her administration's interpretation of the Clean Water Act, which has blocked critical energy projects in the region and cost New York significant economic opportunities. The letter states, quote, the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation's decision to stand in the way of this key natural gas pipeline infrastructure project, despite federal approval, caused extensive delays and increased project costs with the ongoing challenge of trying to develop in the current regulatory environment in New York. This action has once again robbed our state of a key opportunity for greater energy security and prevented increased access across the Northeast, the Midwest, and Canada to affordable, reliable natural gas. The construction of the Northern Access Pipeline would have represented an investment of an estimated $500 million, with much of that investment directed into New York. Some of our state's most rural counties in the southern tier could have benefited from increased local tax revenue and new jobs to complete this integral pipeline. Initial project estimates expected a peak construction workforce at 1,680 jobs, with much of that work expected to have been completed by companies in New York. Now, the letter was co-signed by Representative Claudia Tenney, Glenn G.T. Thompson, Guy Reichheiler, Mike Law. Pardon me, frog in my throat. Little iced tea there. Mike Lawler, Nicole Maltakis, Dan Mauser, Andrew Garbarino, Nick LaLota, John Joyce, and Mike Kelly. So thought that was a good segue into, again, promoting Assemblyman Phil Palmisano. All right, we're just getting started. Thank you for joining us. Having a blast already. The Friday morning edition of Frankly Speaking on this very chilly morning. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this.
This is Bob. He's gambling by giving Nana's precious snow globe to his niece. Bob understands how to gift responsibly. He knows some gambles are too risky, like gifting a lottery ticket to anyone under 18. Studies show the earlier a person begins, the more likely they are to develop a gambling problem later in life. Better grab the glue, Bob. We all take risks in life. Just gift responsibly. To learn how you can gift responsibly this holiday season, visit playresponsiblyny.com.
Shop and compare.
Shop and compare.
Shop and compare.
Shop and compare.
Times may change, but one thing stays the same.
Shop and compare.
You won't find a better deal. Guaranteed.
Shop and compare.
Come sit and sleep shop in Corning. Shop and compare.
It's a new season of Sherry.
Having a good time has always been my #1 goal. I tend to get crazy. At my age, I should not be jumping up and down like that. And if you don't know what I mean, ask your mama. The young ones, y'all like, we don't know what you're talking about. But I promise you, in 30 years, you will.
It's the best time in daytime.
Weekdays at 2 p.m. on Big Fox.
Welcome to Frankly Speaking, talking to the people that affect your life, that affect all of our day-to-day lives. This is something you're not going to get anywhere else. We've got a lot to offer. There'll be a lot of news, local, regional, national, really the things that affect you. And I think you'll be glad that you tuned in. So think of it as radio on TV. Frankly Speaking, live, 2 hours long, starting at 6 a.m. on WYDC TV Big Fox. This is history making.
Fox website is here now. WYDCTV.com. Local and national news that keeps you informed and involved. WYDCTV.com. Today's weather up to date and in your town. WYDCTV.com. Sports news, local events, and health stories that affect you. WYDCTV.com. The Big Fox website. Your news here now. WYDCTV.com.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact Boss Security for all your business and home security needs. It even looks chilly out there. Thanks for joining us as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. Something interesting just quickly before we get into pardons. I'd read an article, and I think it was on the podcast itself, but that Call Her Daddy podcast that Kamala Harris attended, it has been disclosed that she spent around $100,000 to rebuild the set of that program in a hotel room. For whatever reason, she pretty much wanted to do the same thing, not rebuild the set, but wanted Seth Rogen to do his show from somewhere else as well, even though she was in Texas. I'm not sure what that is, if it makes her feel like she has a home field advantage, but wasting $100,000. And the podcast, who they said was going to be so important to her presidential run, they were mocking her, saying that when they heard about it, they said, our own studio doesn't cost $100,000. Saying that, cardboard, essentially, that they built it out of should have never cost $100,000, but yet it did. So they were mocking her and ridiculing her, which is not a good sign, which, by the way, the numbers on that was staggering. Still good numbers. Harris's interview with that podcast got something like 8 million. Don't quote me exactly, but 8 million. But they said last article I read that the Trump-Rogan interview got something like 70 million views, just to show you the difference. But anyway, tying in with that, we heard about the donations that Harris made to Al Sharpton before their already easy interview. Even if she didn't make the donations, you know that was not going to be a hardball interview, right? Well, now a coalition of black churches are calling on MSNBC to suspend and investigate Reverend Al Sharpton after his nonprofit accepted $500,000 in donations from Vice President Kamala Harris's campaign. Quote, "This type of action puts a moral stain on the integrity of the black church," the National Black Church Initiative wrote, urging MSNBC to investigate the Harris campaign payment. And they claim, this is another reason why MSNBC has lost, I don't know if they've really had credibility, but lost so many viewers, to think that they were supposedly caught off guard by this. They didn't know that Harris had made that donation to Sharpton before the interview, signaling a lot of red flags there. But the coalition says it represents 150,000 churches and 27.7 million members across the country, and, quote, "is very concerned that one of our leaders appears to be selling our voting to Kamala Harris's campaign. We will support Reverend Sharpton's suspension until the investigation is complete," the coalition said on Facebook. In all the talk about the threat to our democracy, someone forgot to articulate that free, open, objective, and transparent press is an essential component of the building blocks to preserve our democracy's integrity. Wow. So just kind of a quick update on the Harris campaign there. And man, can you imagine if that's the way she spent money? $1.5 billion in 107 days with $20 million more in debt. Imagine what she would have done with your tax dollars, folks. So after pardoning, this is an intriguing headline. They are really going after Biden, and I want to get your thoughts on this because they are, in my opinion, making Biden the fall guy. Biden has been loyal to the Democrat Party, blind adherence to the Democrat Party for over 50 years. And not well over 50 years, right? No, yeah, probably 50 years. And yet now they, instead of learning their lesson from this race, they're now blaming him. And so this whole week we've talked about the article after article saying his legacy, and not in a positive way. And I actually think that Joe Sempolinski had a really great point yesterday that when they look back at his presidency, number one in 100 years from now, when they study it, probably the thing that they're going to take away the most is the pardon of his son Hunter. But anyway, so they keep talking about his legacy and it's destroyed. He's the fall guy. Now you see the media piling on, roll call saying after pardoning son, Biden returns home to a credibility problem. And that's inconvenient timing, considering Joe Biden's team, fresh off a foreign trip, must shift quickly into legacy mode. I thought his legacy was already secure. Now, before they started making him the fall guy, remember he was George Washington, most consequential president in our lifetime, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now he is public enemy number one. He's a pariah. How the tables have turned. Mark Halperin even going as far as saying that donors who ignored Biden's state blame him for the election loss more than themselves. So think of this. We all knew about the cognitive decline. I know I'm jumping around. This isn't the roll call article. We'll get back to that. We all knew about the cognitive decline. But when certain outlets talked about it, they were mocked and ridiculed. No, he's fine. He's sharper than he's ever been. And remember, Harris was very much a part. I know it's all over, so there's no sense rubbing salt on the wounds, I suppose. But Harris knew about this, and I still consider it one of the greatest scandals in presidential history, the cover-up of his mental decline. But they all knew it, and now they're blaming him for not stepping down earlier when they were propping him up, saying he's fine, he's going to win this thing, kept building him up, and then, of course, the debate was a downfall. But political analyst and best-selling author Mark Halperin says that President Biden's presidential library may become more of a bookmobile as donors stew about his loss. Democrats are still reeling. You know about that. President Biden appears to have fallen from the Democrat Party's good graces, to the point that where some frustrated Democrats are reportedly considering withholding donations to Biden's future presidential library over his pardon of Hunter. Wow. Quote, I mean, there will be some version, maybe more like a bookmobile than an actual library. But this is not a surprise. He's never been a good fundraiser, and the donors are really annoyed. But I will say that the donors and the Democrat officials who are now so outraged about the conduct, as you said, the press knew all of this, so did they. They stood silent when Joe Biden's operatives crushed Bobby Kennedy and Dean Phillips and rigged the rules. They stood silent as he stayed in the race and decided he was going to run another term. They stood silent when Kamala Harris was given the nomination without a shot being fired. I get why they are mad at Joe Biden, but I think a lot of them need to turn the clock back and imagine what they might have done differently. And Joe Biden might be in a place to raise that money. So I think he'll raise some money, but as I said, he's never been a good fundraiser. It's the kind of work he doesn't like to do, and the donors blame him more than they blame themselves. He then went on to say, it's some combination of Trump derangement syndrome and not wanting to be ostracized for doing anything that might help Donald Trump win. The irony is, the reason Joe Biden has been left in the position he's in, the reason Donald Trump was reelected, there are plenty of reasons, but a big reason is the silence in the media. I think it's one of the biggest scandals of any sort in American history, and certainly one of the biggest media scandals. People say, oh, they didn't see behind the scenes. All you needed was a C-SPAN subscription to know there was a level of mental decline, and they stood silent. And not just the press, but the donors. The donors were spending time with him in living rooms. They saw it. Clooney eventually came out and said it, but far too late. And that's a great point. We know they all knew, but they didn't know what to do. Not that they wanted him out. They thought, this is my opinion, they thought that he was the only one, and they're not wrong, the only Democrat that beat Donald Trump. So they thought he could do it again. They didn't want to be ostracized. They didn't want to be criticized. And that's what happened. If you question his mental acuity, you were criticized as a Republican, let alone a Democrat. So it's very interesting to see them now place the blame on him. He has become the scapegoat. But going back to what I was saying about the credibility problem, Karine Jean-Pierre, the president's top spokesperson and chief image defender, told reporters, as she has so many times over the years, they simply should not trust their lying eyes and ears. One of the things that the president always believes is to be truthful to the American people. That is something that he always truly believes. Okay, why did he take that trip right after the pardon then? After all, Biden on numerous occasions told interviewers and shouting White House press corps members that he would not pardon his troubled son. But yeah, at the end of the day, he did. And we could go through that whole litany of all the times he said that. But then also, Democrats are mad also because he mentioned the politicalization of the justice system. But anyway, the credibility problem, legacy, all of the long knives coming out for Joe Biden. We're quiet this morning. Get those comments coming in. We've got Dr. Coleman coming up in a little bit more on pardons. We're going to be talking a little bit here about Trump, and I realize we don't have a lot of time, so I might jump over some of the pardon. Well, we'll see. What do you want to talk about? Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox. Stay with us.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
The holiday season has arrived, a time where more than ever our thoughts turn gratefully to those who serve our community and those all around us. May the holiday season end the present year on a cheerful note and make way for a fresh and bright new year. Here's wishing you a happy holidays. This holiday greeting is brought to you by our friends at Tom South Corning Collision, Sheddon's Wholesale, Suburban Propane, Corning Building Company, Empire Bricks, Hector Wine Company, and Apple Ridge Senior Living.
I'm Nancy O'Dell. This is Crime Expose.
It's chilling, it's haunting.
We knew exactly who it was.
Blood stains on her shorts.
See you in September. I'm Nancy O'Dell. This is Crime Expose.
It's chilling, it's haunting.
We knew exactly who it was.
Blood stains on her shorts.
See you in September.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Just looking at these comments coming in. Look at that. Such a nice view. All right, we're broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. I missed a couple comments. I'll read them later, but I didn't have a chance to read them before, and I don't like to just willy-nilly read them. But the first one, not a surprise that they turned on Biden. Whenever they need a fall guy, they often point the finger of blame to everyone but party policies. Couldn't be their borders, energy, or woke policies. Great point. And that's why, as we talked with, I keep saying that, but with the former Congressman Joe Semplinsky yesterday, I highlighted the fact that I think they need almost a Romney-type awakening. What do I mean by that if you missed the show yesterday? Republicans have been told Bob Dole is the only way we can win. John McCain is the only way we can win. Mitt Romney is the only way we can win. And because they got to be more moderate. And finally, the Republican Party said enough. And what I should actually call it the Jeb policy, really. It was Jeb that broke the camel's back when they're saying this Trump is just a circus act. Jeb Bush is the only way we can beat Hillary Clinton. And I think that's when Republicans said, what do we, to Trump's term, what do we got to lose? Let's just go with Trump. Let's see what happens. And the rest is history. And I asked Joe, do you think they'll have that kind of moment? After, they stole it from Bernie, they stole it from Bernie twice. The list goes on, and really rigged the system this time so that Biden would be the nominee for re-election, and then Harris, of course, never receiving a vote. You don't need me to relitigate all this. But they're not having that soul-searching moment, and that's to this viewer's exact point, because they're saying, now it was Biden. If he would have got out earlier, we could have found somebody better who was going to still push the same border policies, energy policies, woke policies, to this viewer's point, and they would have been better because they would have been more marketable than Harris. They haven't learned, and hey, none of my business. No reason for me to make any suggestions. Okay, the next comment. Biden legacy is an epic failure. The disgraceful withdrawal from Afghanistan. I had someone ask me the other day about my thoughts on China and Taiwan. If anything does happen there, it goes back to that disgraceful withdrawal from Afghanistan. It's why Russia felt totally okay going into Ukraine. So I agree. The disgraceful withdrawal from Afghanistan, then no acknowledgement to the families who lost loved ones, I know it. The failure to meet the needs of those still suffering from flooding. Biden caused more division in the country than anyone since President Lincoln. The pardon only solidifies the failures, and those are just some of the highlights, that viewer said. I agree. Those are some of the highlights. We could think of a lot more. I think, too, it can't be understated. It seems like such a small point, but the Democrat Party and Biden mocking you for not being able to afford eggs, for essentially saying, like Biden called you garbage, Biden saying, and Biden and his people saying, you're not smart enough to understand how good the economy actually is. As you're maybe having your ramen noodle dinner for the third time this week, or your tuna fish sandwich, you're not smart enough to understand how great this economy is. And people don't like being told they're idiots when they know. Like Joe said, when they know what they're experiencing, what they're feeling. I think that's a very important part in all of this, calling it garbage, deplorables. They've been doing it for a very long time. Peggy Noonan writes that they're trying to find ways to kind of still justify this pardon in a way like we heard from Whoopi Goldberg the other day. She says a bipartisan slippage in standards. Oh, bipartisan. What does she mean? Biden's pardon of Hunter is as disconcerting as Trump's more exotic administration nominees. So an unprecedented pardon, a blanket pardon for his son for crimes committed, known and unknown, is just as disconcerting or troubling as nominees that Peggy Noonan doesn't like to Trump's administration. Talk about apples and oranges. How are those two even comparable? This is what they've been doing since this pardon. They're trying to downplay the pardon and also use it as a way to attack Trump. Well, what was he supposed to do? Trump's going to break all these norms the next 4 years, so why doesn't he just do it? That was essentially Whoopi Goldberg's argument. So they're trying, and who was James Clyburn was suggesting that they treated Biden unfairly. I'm paraphrasing. So unfairly. I don't know who they are. He said, why not? We'll get to that in a second. But we're seeing bipartisan slippage of standards, says Peggy Noonan. It's It is embarrassing as citizens to see the President of the United States pardon his son, and it's such an all-encompassing way for an illegal transgression going back nearly 11 years. And I don't want to go through this, but what she essentially is making the argument here that that is akin to Trump picking people that Peggy Noonan doesn't like in his administration. Probably, maybe at some point she even uses the all-encompassing word of loyalist. Who knows? We'll talk a little bit more about this. I see some great comments coming in, so stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
Today's topic: increasing fuel costs continue to drive up inflation, making it harder to afford everything from food to home heating.
Here at Hustle Sins, we know the only way to beat inflation is to fight inflation. So we're fighting back with zero interest financing and big cash rebates. Get a 4-person hot tub for your family for as little as $100 per month and pay zero interest. Or save up to $3,000 on a fabulous salt system hot tub. And of course, you will always get Hustle Sins' unbelievable service. Don't let inflation fears kill your dreams. Fight back with Hustle Sins. Remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hustle Sins.
Football show breaks down all things NFL. GMFB Overtime.
Check out top highlights, player interviews, special guests, and everything in between. 5 days a week.
GMFB Overtime. It's football for everyone.
It's a new season of Sherry.
Having a good time has always been my number one goal. I tend to get crazy. At my age, I should not be jumping up and down like that. And if you don't know what I mean, ask your mama. The young ones, y'all like, we don't know what you're talking about. But I promise you, in 30 years, you will.
It's the best time in daytime.
Weekdays at 2 p.m. on Big Fox.
Welcome to Frankly Speaking, talking to the people that affect your life, that affect all of our day-to-day lives. This is something you're not going to get anywhere else. We've got a lot to offer. There'll be a lot of news, local, regional, national, really the things that affect you. And I think you'll be glad that you tuned in. So think of it as radio on TV. Frankly Speaking, live, 2 hours long, starting at 6 a.m. on WYDC TV Big Fox. This is history making. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. All right, welcome back. The Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. All right, let's go through some viewer comments. Excuse me. First off, perhaps if they started listening to what the people's needs are, they would do a lot better. I agree. Instead of focusing on the woke policies, actually, if anything, instead of worrying about the needs, they go against those needs, like the immigration issue. As a matter of fact, speaking of that, Democrats are telling Biden to get as many migrants possible into the United States before leaving office. In a letter sent to Biden by Senators Catherine Cortez Masto, Ben Ray Lujan, and Alex Padilla, it says, in addition to supporting strong border security, we are eager to ensure that DACA recipients, TPS holders, and other immigrants who are critical members of our communities and economies are not forgotten during this busy time. Goes on to suggest that he get as many migrants possible into the U.S. before leaving office. But next up, comment from a different viewer. I think Biden and Harris had a deal. He would drop out and she would pardon Hunter. When she lost, he had no choice but to pardon to save his own skin. I'm still of the mindset, and I like the thought. I'm still the mindset that the reason Harris was the nominee is because he came out and endorsed her right away as his last real power move, the last little bit of power that he had in the Democrat Party, to say, you know what? You don't think I can do it? Oh, my shirt's all messed up. You don't think I can do it? Well, okay, good luck winning with her, someone who they historically said was not a good candidate. So pretty amazing that if that's true, that he would say, let's give it a shot. Sorry, I have a lot of noises going on. All right, next comment. Frank, surprise. In the Penny wrongful death case, Neely's family, who didn't try to help him with his mental illness when he was alive, has filed a civil lawsuit to try and get monetary compensation for his death. I know, I saw that. Thank you, Ken. I saw that this morning, following that case closely. Interesting case, yes. I know. No surprise. I know, I can see your sarcasm, Ken. Yes, not a surprise. Next up, a different comment. Joe is like many politicians, meaning Joe Biden, is like many politicians who have made a living off of people's tax dollars. Look at Schumer. Neither have held a real job. Term limits would solve a great deal of this type of issue. It could possibly encourage change and more citizen involvement and awareness. I agree. And getting, just like any corporation, let's say, you want fresh blood occasionally. And when you have, you've seen the pictures, you've seen the concerns that people have when, someone like even Mitch McConnell has a health scare. So yes, people that have been in there forever. Back to the pardons, because we got to take a break here pretty soon. Running a little bit late because we got Dr. Coleman coming up right at 6:50-ish. Right at, I guess that contradicts itself. Representative James Clyburn told The Hill that everybody knows about Biden. Everybody knows that. But for his relationship to you as President of the United States, the object of a lot of unfair truths, he would not have gone the distance he had gone in the system. So Hunter got convicted. What this boils down to, let me tell you what it boils down to. Hunter got convicted because Joe was an object of a lot of unfair untruths. When? Wasn't by the media. Wasn't by the Democrats who propped him up for 3.5 years. So he did this. He pardoned Hunter with this blanket pardon because Joe was mistreated, picked on. John Fetterman, the senator from Pennsylvania, believes Biden should also pardon Trump after Hunter got a pass, appearing on The View of all places. He said, it's undeniable that the case against Hunter Biden's trial was really politically motivated. But I also think it's true that the trial in New York for Trump, that was politically motivated as well. Well, of course it was. I mean, you can't have Bragg and Letitia James running on the fact that they were going to go after Trump and not suggest it was politically motivated. Fetterman argued that both Hunter's prosecution and Trump's hush money trial, brought up by Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg, were done so by a weaponized justice system going after political rivals. In both cases, I think a pardon is appropriate. America's confidence in these types of institutions have been damaged by these types of cases, and we cannot allow these kinds of institutions to be weaponized against our political opponents. Both of those trials were clearly politically motivated, and those kinds of charges would have never been brought unless one side realized they could weaponize that. Fetterman chided Biden's pardon as it threw a wrench in the party's view that criminal justice system can give convicted felons a second chance following a prison sentence. Oh, interesting take on that. James Clyburn, going back to his interview on News Nation's The Hill, said similar. He said, I have not urged the president directly, but I did have that discussion with members of his staff that I thought he ought to do that, meaning that he should pardon preemptively Donald Trump, Liz Cheney, Jack Smith, and Dr. Anthony Fauci because, quote, we are trying to run a government on behalf of all the people of this country, and if we spend all of our time going forward pursuing Trump or Trump pursuing those people, it would be detrimental and the air needs to be cleared. Oh, now it's a problem if you're going after people. Now, we don't need Trump wasting all that time. Well, you want him to get to work in Washington, I understand. Well, we don't need him wasting all that time. We don't have to waste time anymore on Trump. Isn't it amazing? It's like they have no self-awareness in Washington. Former Biden communications director Kate Bedingfield said on CNN that there was absolutely a process underway to consider pardons for people the Biden administration believes President-elect Donald Trump might target. So is this going to be the new trend? And I ask this to you. Do you think the new trend will be these blanket pardons? I mean, because let's face it, Trump can do this now. After Hunter's pardon, and this is what scares Democrats, if Trump wants to, he can do the blanket pardons himself. Yeah, day one, the January 6ers can be out. you name it. Or he could, like Biden said, well, for these 10 years, this person has not committed a crime. And that's what it sounds like the Biden administration is looking into for people they believe that Trump will go after. Oh, there's the Corning whistle. That means I'm running late. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Attention, Elmeron may lead to vision loss.
If you have suffered vision problems after taking Elmeron to treat bladder pain, call the Hearn Law Firm. Elmeron may be responsible for your vision problems, and you may deserve compensation for your injuries.
If you took Elmeron and now have vision problems, call the Hearn Law Firm at 888-308-3866 right now. You could find out if you qualify in less than 2 minutes. Call 888-308-3866 for your free case review.
I'm Mary Offord. I've lived here for 70 years, but I do fine right here in my house, and I want to be here as long as I can be. And I feel comfortable knowing that if something happened to me, someone would know because of the cameras that are installed in various spots in my home. That has been a wonderful gift to me, to be able to have that security and that support from Full Circle America, and that's what it's all about.
Thank you again to Boss Security. We appreciate it. Look at that beautiful view as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. Comment from a viewer. Biden pardoned his son to protect his own butt as well as his son's. Yes, that's a very good point. Hey, did you see yesterday the Elon and Vivek went to Washington? They're brainstorming with Congress on how to cut government spending. Boy, they hit hard too. Did you see the photo of someone working? What agency was it? I'm not gonna remember what agency it was, but they in a bubble bath, doing their work from home. Well, the New York Post editorial board said kudos to Senator Joni Ernst for digging deep enough to get the real facts. Years after the pandemic's end, only 6% of federal employees are reporting in person to the office, while nearly a third are remote full-time. Only 6% of federal employees are reporting in person to the office. Wow. While nearly a third are remote full-time. Talk about privilege, right? The nation's capital is a ghost town, Ernst railed, citing an abysmal 12% occupancy rate at D.C.'s federal office buildings. No wonder nobody at the Pentagon noticed when Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin wasn't around during his secret hospitalization at Walter Reed last December. What a good point that is, isn't it? From the Post. If federal employees can't be found at their desks, exactly where are they, the senator asked? More importantly, how hard are they working? How many does the nation actually need? Going back to that idea of non-essential employees, right? That's where DOGE comes in. The Government Efficiency Panel, co-chaired by Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy. It's no surprise the Biden administration never bothered fighting the federal unions to get workers back to work. Now the Trump folks will have to push while also using this info as a guide to trimming bloat. Last year, Team Biden demanded agencies substantially increase meaningful in-person work, but union leaders rebelled, with one insisting that the new guidance, quote, does not override collective bargaining agreements. Sorry. Whatever workplace safety provisions are in those labor deals, they didn't possibly allow this lunacy. President Franklin Roosevelt, a liberal Democrat, clearly had it right about the danger of collective bargaining power of unions in the federal government. Public sector unions have proved a bane for federal, state, and local governments. Ernst's work also makes a strong case for moving entire agencies out of D.C. Leasing, operating, and maintenance costs for federal office buildings run about $15.7 billion a year, she learned. Slimming down the inefficient federal workforce may not come close to closing the federal deficit, but it's clearly a blow for justice that can't come soon enough. It'll be a blow for justice that can't come soon enough. Yes, exciting work on the way, and you know why? And you can tell it's going to be effective because Democrat Senator Chris Murphy said we should come after Elon Musk. Here we go with the lawfare. We should come after Elon Musk. He made a fortune off of taxpayers. There's a lot of threats being thrown around, folks, about going after certain people in the Trump administration. I don't know if we'll have time to get to it. We'll see. But right now we got to take a break. And when we come back, our friend Dr. Stephen Coleman will be joining us. So stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Have you been unable to work for over a year due to a mental or physical disability?
Were you recently denied Social Security disability benefits? Great news. You may be eligible for money, back pay, relief.
If you've been pre-qualified and diagnosed with a recognized condition that prohibits you from working, our lawyers can file a claim to get your disability benefit.
Call us today and find out more.
Call now, 844-617-0440.
The holiday season has arrived, a time where more than ever our thoughts turn gratefully to those who serve our community and those all around us. May the holiday season end the present year on a cheerful note and make way for a fresh and bright new year. Here's wishing you a happy holidays. This holiday greeting is brought to you by our friends at Tom South Corning Collision, Sheddon's Wholesale, Suburban Propane, Corning Building Company, Empire Bricks, Hector Wine Company, and Apple Ridge Senior Living.
Isn't this important? Don't you want more energy? Now's the best time to make every day better and relieve those achy muscles and pains than with the Hesselson's Hot Tub. Hesselson's has hot tubs in stock and available for immediate delivery with unbelievable savings. Hesselson's offers 0% interest-free financing for up to 5 full years. Hesselson's carries the only hot tub brand in the industry with the exclusive freshwater salt system that is eco-friendly and easy to use and only enhances your hot tubbing experience. Come in today and see why your next hot tub should be a Hesselson's hot tub. And remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting from the Hesselson studio, and this is the Steuben Senior Services Fund section of our program. And in the studio today, we have Dr. Coleman. So good to see you.
Frank, it's a pleasure, and I appreciate you having me on.
I was going to say, things probably calmed down for you now that the election's over, but it sounds like you're always busy.
I always try to keep busy. There's always something to be busy about in the Twin Tiers. A lot going on.
Well, and I think this is a great idea, and I was surprised to learn it's your 6th, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But tell us, for those that aren't familiar, about unity in the community.
Well, I've had a series of events in the Twin Tiers called Unity in the Community events, and the idea is there's more that brings us together than keeps us apart. So I've had a number of these things. I've had one, for example, that was anti-violence, say no to violence. I had something just to actually indicate the cohesion of folks in the Twin Tiers. And so I've had a number of these things and have enjoyed doing them. Support the police was another one.
I remember that, yeah.
And
this one's interesting to me because it's about democracy in America and the Twin Tiers. And you always do a great job of bring it into the Twin Tiers as well. It's not just overall the conversation. And this was a topic that you picked well before Election Day, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, during the election, there was a lot of discussion about democracy. Republicans looking at Democrats and saying, you're against democracy. Democrats looking at Republicans, you're against democracy, and yada, yada, yada. And it was thrown around like a football. And I said to myself, well, once the election is over, why not have an event to celebrate democracy, which is the DNA of America, and celebrate our freedom? And so that's why I'm having this event after the election. Could have had it before, but it would have gotten politicized.
Exactly, and that's not what it's about, right? It's supposed to be about bringing the community together, unity in the community.
Yeah, and so democracy is something I think everybody can give a salute to.
Absolutely.
And so that's why I'm doing it, and it's this Saturday, December the 7th, from 1 to 2 at Wisner Park in downtown Elmira. I expect a large crowd. Going to have a number of great speakers. State Senator Tom O'Mara will be there. Georgia Verdier, president of the local NAACP.
Friend of the show. She's been on numerous times.
Yeah, and she is co-sponsoring this with me.
Wonderful.
Elmira Mayor Dan Mandel will be a on the program on Saturday from 1 to 2 at Wisner Park. And also, I'm very, very proud that the Reverend Lori Thornton, the pastor of the Friendship Baptist Church in Corning, will be at the event. So a lot of great speakers, and it's a great subject. Unity in the community, celebrating democracy in America and the Twin Tiers. It's also on Pearl Harbor Day.
Yes. What an important day to have a celebration of democracy when the threat was very real.
Right. Absolutely. You go back to December 7th, 1941, Frank, and you had 2,340 members of the U.S. military were killed when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. So it's great on this date to celebrate democracy, but also remember those that perished at Pearl Harbor, and remember all veterans and those that are currently wearing the uniform, because they protect democracy, they protect our freedom, they protect our way of life. So I'm so glad that I'm able to have this celebration of democracy along with it happening on Pearl Harbor Day. And I also think, Frank, that Pearl Harbor Day is not getting the attention it should.
Just going to say the same thing. That's why I was so excited to see that you made that decision to have it on December 7th, because I think people need to be made aware, or at least have their memories jogged about December 7th.
I think it's almost like a lot of Americans are forgetting about Pearl Harbor Day. What they remember now is 9/11,
of course,
which I can understand. But Pearl Harbor Day was such a major day in American history, a day that will live in infamy, then President Franklin Roosevelt said.
And what an important day, like you said, to celebrate, pardon me, democracy. And one of the, I'm looking through the list, and you mentioned a few, newly elected, you could say Chemung Family Court Judge-elect, Brian Maggs, fresh off the presses right after Election Day. Congratulations.
Yeah.
He's
Brian,
a great guy.
Yeah, it's great that Brian Maggs will be speaking. I'm looking forward to hearing what he has to say, and I think he's going to make one hell of a family judge in Chemung County. Wonderful.
That was an exciting race. He was on. I was so glad he could be on the program as many times as he had. And there's a great list. What goes into the planning behind this, Dr. Coleman? I know you spend a lot of time planning it, but who's going to attend? All of that. Does it take you a very long time?
Yeah, it takes a long time, but this. You just do it step by step over a number of weeks, you know. And Georgia Verdier, who's co-sponsoring this with me, she did a great job of recruiting a number of people, including Anita Lewis of the Economic Opportunity Program, who's also, as you know, an artist, a musician in the Twin Tiers, Anita Lewis. So Georgia Verdier helped me recruit people for this. She recruited a number of people, and then the next thing is to get the copy ready and to get the things ready for the promotion.
Sure.
This thing.
There you go. People have seen around, of course.
Yeah,
we've been showing on the screen.
Flyer is something that I did, and so it takes a lot of work, step by step, recruiting people. You also have to, secure the venue, Wisner Park in downtown Elmira. You have to get insurance. You have to have insurance.
You forget about that part.
Yeah, and insurance, and also printing things and writing copy and recruiting, all these things, and then it all comes together at the event. Also the sound system. Had to get somebody for the sound system. John Manfredi is doing that. John does a great job when it comes to sound systems, and is a musician and is a musician in his own right.
And you said it's at Wisner Park. It's this Saturday from 1 to 2. But you haven't always just had it in Elmira, right? You've jumped around before. Didn't you have one here in Corning?
Yeah, I had one in Corning, right on this street, Centerway Square, and had it there, and that was an event to celebrate the unity between Corning, between Elmira, between Ithaca, a unity between the different communities in the Twin Tiers. That was a great success, and I really enjoyed working with the folks who oversee Centerway Square.
Right, and we mentioned this is the 6th event that you've put on. Do you find it continues to grow, or do you find that it depends on what the topic matter is?
It depends on the topic. It also depends on the weather.
Well, you never know what. That's true.
If it's a beautiful day, if it's going to be this Saturday, clear skies and 65 or 70 degrees, probably more people than if it's the opposite.
Yeah, if we look like Buffalo, right?
We have Buffalo weather, but I think we're going to get a good crowd. It's a great crowd, and this is a thing for not only veterans to go to, but also families to educate their kids on unity in the community and democracy, and what happened on Pearl Harbor on December the 7th, 1941. Saluting veterans, saluting those who serve or have served, and celebrating our freedom. That's what it's all about. And also celebrating the fact that on January the 20th, Frank, we're going to have the peaceful transition of power in the United States as Donald Trump takes the oath of office.
Which you predicted. I'll say you're humble, but you predicted it. But you're right. What a way to celebrate. In this perfect season of democracy was successful on the 5th, and then it's kind of capped off the celebration on the 20th right there in the middle. I like that. I like that thought, Dr. Coleman. What should someone expect that hasn't been to a unity in the community? What does a typical event look like?
Well, there's going to be great speakers. Everybody will be able to put their hand on their heart for the national anthem.
Of course.
And just a lot about democracy from political leaders like Tom O'Mara and Dan Mandel, but also religious leaders like Lori Thornton, and also community leaders like Anita Lewis of the Economic Opportunity Program. So a lot of leaders in the community that are really part of this community, so much a part of this community. A lot of times when you think of leaders, you think of people in Washington and people in faraway place. Oh, they're the leaders. No, we have leaders here in the Twin Tiers, and we have leaders that make a difference. And Tom O'Mara makes a difference. Anita Lewis makes a difference. Mayor Mandel makes a difference week after week, month after month, year after year. So I'm proud. I'm proud that with Georgia Verdier, the NAACP, we have this thing going. And talking about making a difference, wow.
Yeah.
What about Georgia Verdier? She's
Amazing.
made one heck of a difference over the years in the Twin Tiers.
And you mentioned the leaders. When you think about it, celebrating democracy, the voters are the leaders, too. You know, when you think about it. And that's why it's so great to celebrate.
Yeah, how can you show support and respect for democracy? Well, just vote with your feet. Show up to this Unity in the Community event to celebrate democracy in America and the Twin Tiers. Celebrating democracy. Alexis de Tocqueville will be very happy.
Yes. Before we go, Dr. Coleman, can I get the scoop? What's the next one on?
Well,
do you decide on the issue of the day? Do you wait a little closer to something comes up?
At this point, I haven't decided what the next Unity in the Community event will be. I'll be thinking. People will stop me on the streets or in stores and say, hey, how about this for a topic, and how about that for a topic? And I love to hear feedback from people. So I hope people watching today, if they see me, will say, hey, Dr. Coleman, saw you on Frank's show. I think you should have a Unity in a Community event on X, Y, or Z.
There you go. It's Unity in the Community, rally to celebrate democracy in America and the Twin Tiers. And it's at Wisner Park this Saturday from 1 to 2. Dr. Coleman, thanks so much for being on the show. I always appreciate having you coming on.
Frank, it's always a signal honor to be on your program, and congratulations on your success.
Well, thanks, Dr. Coleman. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
Sheldon and Missy face off in
Why can't we watch DuckTales? Because we don't learn anything.
Book Smarts versus Street Smarts.
Is it working? Are you feeling motivated? Very.
It's the battle of twins.
Life is so confusing. I always hoped it would be easier for me when I grew up. It's gonna be all right. You were faking. Bazinga.
Young Sheldon.
Weeknights at 6:30 on Big Fox.
Welcome to Frankly Speaking, talking to the people that affect your life, that affect all of our day-to-day lives. This is something you're not going to get anywhere else. We've got a lot to offer. There'll be a lot of news, local, regional, national, really the things that affect you. And I think you'll be glad that you tuned in. So think of it as radio on TV. Frankly Speaking. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Aiken. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio, and in that studio this morning, we have Assemblyman Phil Palmisano. Good morning, Phil.
Good morning, Frank. Good to be with you
It's
again.
good to see you here in the Crystal City Christmas time of year.
Yes, it is.
It's beautiful.
It's a fun time.
You warm?
It's a little cold.
Yeah, I was going to say.
It's fun, but it's cold.
I was going to start, first of all, there's a couple things I want to start on, but which just goes against what that means. But yesterday, Joe Semplinsky was on the program, Assemblyman-elect Joe Semplinsky, who you'll be working with closely. And this comment came in, and I read it during the program, but I think it's worth mentioning again. This is from a viewer. Will there ever be a time that Joe or Phil will run for governor? We need their down-to-earth leadership in New York. Do you know what Joe said? I think Phil would be great at governor.
I think Joe would do a good job, too.
First of all, congratulations on your re-election.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yes. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about that, but there's a lot to talk about.
Sure.
And I don't even actually know where to begin, but I think it's worth mentioning. We had talked earlier about energy. Nick Langworthy had sent a letter to Kathy Hochul about that pipeline. Let's talk, because that's just such a passion for you about energy. What are you seeing before we get into next year? What are you seeing on the energy front?
I'm just a great deal concerned.
Yeah.
Nothing's changed as far as what I've been seeing from the administration, from my colleagues on the other side of the aisle. It seems like they were full speed ahead with this plan for full electrification, this plan to get rid of natural gas infrastructure supply and delivery systems. No plan to get away from their plan to take away consumer choice on how you heat your homes, cook your food, power your buildings or the vehicles you drive. My concerns are how that's going to affect the reliability of the grid, which a Cornell professor recently came out with and addressed some of those concerns. And it's just basically going to lead to more and more businesses, families, farmers, and manufacturers leaving our state. And I think when we talk about our energy policy, when you talk to the listeners at home, the viewers at home, they care about two things. They want their energy to be affordable, and they want it to be reliable. When they hit the switch, they want the lights to turn on, the heat to turn on. And I'm just concerned where we're heading. These two things, affordability, reliability, and certainly not feasibility, are part of the equation. It's always got to be so-called clean, green, or renewable, and that's not so much clean and green as we've talked about in the past.
And what a perfect topic to start with, because as we just mentioned, how cold it is out. And like you said, the Cornell professor saying in the article, there's a mind-boggling gap in New York's plan for clean electric grid. Quote, we are so far behind.
We are, and I think this is the thing myself, Senator Ramirez, and my friend, Mr. Semplinsky, all of us have been talking about. It's good to have goals, but they're not realistic. No. And the other thing is natural gas. I mean, 60% of the people heat their homes with natural gas. 40% of our state's generation comes from natural gas. And I've heard others say natural gas is a bridge fuel. Well, if that's your perspective on it, do you tear down a bridge before you build a new one?
Right.
And that's exactly what they're trying to do with the reliable and affordable natural gas infrastructure that we have here today. And to get this match towards full electrification and the costs associated with it. I mean, we talked about it. If they don't just change the methodology and how they use to measure emissions to a 100-year methodology like every other state plus one international, state, and federal, it will increase prices at the pump for New Yorkers by 63 cents a gallon and increase natural gas home heating costs by 79%. Those are their numbers, not my numbers.
Right.
And they're looking at this cap and invest plan, which is really cap and tax, and that those things are going to be passed on to the consumer. Same thing at the prices at the pump and everything. And then we have this bill that's pending before the legislature too, that we passed at the end of session. They call it the Climate Superfund Act.
That's a scary name, if I'm being honest.
Yes.
Just by itself, Superfund never sounds good.
No.
Does it?
What that means is we're coming for more money from you.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. I want to talk about that more in depth because I don't think people are fully aware. But I saw I wish I printed the article. It was on Empire Report that there was a school district that said, yeah, we should probably go to EV buses, but we're not going to. We're just going to buy. We have to buy the gas buses.
Right. And that's the thing. I mean, that's the other thing with this full march to electrification and the feasibility issues. The state does not care about the feasibility. They passed a law saying that beginning in 2027, every school district, every new bus has to be an electric school bus. Forget the fact that you have the range issues. Forget the cost issues. I mean, you're talking about a cost of an EV school bus will cost $400,000 to $450,000 compared to probably about $125,000 for a near zero emission diesel school bus. I mean, it's mind-blowing to me. It's not just the cost. I mean, Empire Center did a report that it's going to cost for replacement of these buses $8 to $15 billion. That's going to be borne by school districts. And now the state says, well, we have $500 million for the bond act. We have this federal money. When I questioned Doreen Harris, the co-chair of the Climate Action Council, how many buses will this pay for with this all the federal and state money? If you have all that money and you bought buses, how many would it pay for? She said 3,000. We have a near fleet of 50,000 buses. So what that means is Mr. and Mrs. Smith and Corning or Woodhull, they're going to be footing the cost of these buses. And on top of that, you have not just the cost of the buses, you have the infrastructure costs that you have, for the charging infrastructure that's not in place that you need to do. And also some school districts have said that they're going to have to pay, to do their power upgrades. I mean, when we had the press conference up in Albany earlier last year, I think it was Shenandoah School District said it was going to cost them $30 million to put in a substation. Wow. That's borne by the property taxpayer, not spread out.
Imagine seeing that when you go to vote on the school budget. That first time that they have to switch over. I mean, their school budgets are kind of scary numbers anyway.
Yes, they are.
So what happens if the voters turn down the budget?
Well, that's the thing I'm scared about too, is because the voters approve these things.
Yeah.
I'm scared that they're going to really try to go through this process saying there's no more school votes.
That's a good point.
On these buses, because we have to get to this. And the thing about this is there's no out for feasibility. There's no out for reliability. And the thing is, the most hypocritical part about this for the state, and from my perspective, is so every new school purchase has to be electric by 2027. And by 2035, they're supposed to convert their entire fleet to electric buses.
Yeah.
The state of New York doesn't have to convert their medium and heavy duty fleets till 2040. A full 5 years after our school districts. So I've said our school districts and our property taxpayers should not be the guinea pigs for this experiment. And plus, the state of New York has an out for feasibility. And that's the thing, we put in legislation that would say, some common sense things that should have been done before we put this in place. There would be a cost benefit analysis. So ask me how much this would cost school districts. There'd be a feasibility analysis working with the NISO, our utilities, and the PSC, the Department of Public Service, to see how much, if the infrastructure is even there to put in place, because we know the grid and the infrastructure isn't in place yet for that.
Right.
A safety analysis, because we know these things, when they catch on fire, they burn fast and they burn quick and hot. I'm very concerned. If there's a school bus fire with our kids on it, and they're not going to have a chance.
No.
And then the other thing we've talked about in the Thulian, they talk about the materials, the elements used to produce the batteries, to make the batteries. Cobalt and lithium. Cobalt is extracted in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Well documented, they use child labor, some as young as 6 years old. They go into these mines and hand mine these artesian mines, and these mines have collapsed on them, killed them, lost limbs, been paralyzed. And we've had people from the Democratic Republic of Congo come up and talk about this issue, but my colleagues on the other side don't want to talk about it. They ignore it. And the lithium mining, they poison water, rivers, and streams in Africa. It's well documented. There's been birth defects. And can you imagine if children were dying here and if water, rivers, and streams were being polluted here? But it's okay because it helps if it's happening in these poor African countries, because we don't see it. Our heads in the sand. But yet it's okay because if it's helping us meet our so-called clean energy goal, and they're not clean energy goals.
And what at the end of the day, what's at New York State clean energy deal? So we pollute somewhere,
right?
So it's all virtue signaling, but it's at the taxpayer expense.
Taxpayer expense. I mean, billions of dollars. I mean, we talked about the 63 cents a gallon is 79% on your energy bills. The PSC last July passed a proposal that would increase rates for ratepayers by $43 billion in the future to pay for these green energy mandates. And then to convert your home over to full electrification, which is what they want to do, it costs the average homeowner, by 3 different studies, $35,000 to convert your home over to full electrification from natural gas. And natural gas is an affordable and reliable system.
If you have to switch your house over to that, is that not the straw that finally says I'm moving? I don't have $35,000. I can go to a neighboring state and probably get a pretty decent place for that.
Right. You're right. And we did pass it for new buildings. The governor wanted to do it for replacement by 2030. That was rejected by the legislature, thank God. But the thing, what they're going to do, Frank, they're going to do it death by 100 cuts,
exactly.
Whatever, how that's their phrase. Because they're going to make it so expensive, they're going to get people off it. They have this HEAT Act out there that would allow the PSC, thank God that didn't pass yet. That would allow the PSC to go decommission entire neighborhoods without their approval, and then what are you going to do? So there are going to be people, and there's going to be less users on the system, and so it's going to cost them more to maintain the system. That's what they want to do. They're saying, we're not taking away your choice. They certainly are.
Absolutely.
They want to take away the way you heat your home, power your buildings, cook your food, and the vehicles you drive.
Exactly. We got to take our first break. It's Fridays with Phil. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
When you think boots, think Hesselsen's. Hesselsen's has the largest selection of work boots in the area. Composite and steel-toe boots, Met-Guard boots, soft-toe boots, and hikers, duty and western boots, all in one location, Hesselsen's at Meyer Heights. Hesselsen's has men's and ladies' boots in all sizes and widths. Choose from the largest names in the industry: Danner, Carolina, Timberland Pro, Keen Utility, Thorogood, Area, and Georgia, to name just a few. Hesselsen's has been locally owned and operated since 1955, so when you think local service and great selection, think Hesselsen's. Remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hesselsen's.
This is an important message for everyone on Medicare. Right now is the Medicare annual enrollment period, and today we are talking about Medicare Part C, commonly called Medicare Advantage. If you don't have a Medicare Part C plan, call now. You may be eligible for plans in your zip code with additional benefits or cost savings you may not be receiving now, or that may have previously not been available to you. Different Part C plans are available in different parts of the country, so don't wait. Call the number on your screen now. If you're on Medicare, you can call even if you called last year. We will check to see if there is a Part C plan available in your area with additional benefits or cost savings. Call to speak with a licensed insurance agent before the end of the annual enrollment period. You don't get Medicare Part C benefits automatically, so call now for your free 2025 no-obligation Medicare benefits review.
Just call 800-756-0568. 800-756-0568.
Name something with a diamond in it.
Diamondback rattlesnake.
It's in the name. Name a low-calorie food you might make your edible underwear out of.
Salmon.
Watch it weeknights. Share it the next day.
Wild caught Norwegian teriyaki.
Share in the fun. Weeknights on Family Feud.
7 and 7:30 on Big.
Thank you to Boss Security and Horseheads for sponsoring the Roof Cam. Contact Boss Security for all your business and home security needs. We welcome you back to Frankly Speaking as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio, and this is the Steuben Senior Services Fund section of our program because we are being joined by Assemblyman Phil Palmisano. Phil, we mentioned the Climate Superfund bill. Now, the governor is considering this, but, correct me if I'm wrong, Carl Hastie at one point had said, I've never in my life seen corporations choose the ratepayer over the stockholder. Asking these companies to pay more is going to be, of course, taken out on the ratepayer, so we should be fine, right?
Well, it's interesting. Those words from the speaker was a week before when he said they weren't going to do the bill.
Yeah.
And then the last day of session at 7 o'clock, we got word they were doing the bill. And I used those words both in the Ways and Means Committee and on the floor. And the sponsor said, that doesn't matter. I'm like, it doesn't matter. This is exactly what this is all about. This is a bill of $75 billion, $3 billion a year, that they want to put on so-called polluters for emissions or problems from 2000 to 2018. Think about that. Retroactive assessment. I mean, there's so many problems with it constitutionally and legally. There's, and I'm not a lawyer, obviously, but the takings clause, the ex post facto laws, due process, interstate commerce clause, all these things, many constitutional legal challenges. And the fact that this money will be passed on to consumers. So there will be legal challenges right away if this is signed into law by the governor. The governor is signaling she might sign it. She knows this is a legal issue and constitutional issue. Now, she put out there was a message out there saying that she's trying to negotiate some changes to the bill. The bill is a bad bill.
Right.
I mean, think about it. We're going to ask the DEC, who approved all these businesses were working legally within the system and operating with permits that were approved by the DEC, but yet now we're going to say the DEC is going to go in there and assess these businesses up to the tune of $75 billion.
Why would businesses come to this area?
That's exactly the point. I mean, you have so many problems with this. This is so flawed. And this all gets back into the climate policy because they say we're going to fight climate change. The fact of the matter is New York, and the bills that were passed in New York only affects New York. Doesn't affect Pennsylvania or Ohio. Certainly doesn't affect China, India, or Russia. And New York only contributes 0.4% of total global emissions. 0.4. China has 30%, has 1,000 coal plants and building more each week. And they continue to expand their coal capacity. They're not going to help us meet our clean energy goals. No. And we add India and Russia, that's 40% of global emissions, and New York's 0.3. We can get down to 0. It's not going to make a difference. But what we will do is dismantle our economic and financial infrastructure for businesses as families alike.
This is interesting, Phil. I received this comment, and it's more in reference to our last segment. But this viewer said, I used to have 6 buildings and properties in New York. I'm down to 2. If it even looks like they have a remote chance to pass the gas ban, I'm gone. The problem is I'm not a government entity with unlimited funds. I would have to raise my rents on my apartments in order to pay for the thousands and will cost to convert everything from natural gas. I have one of the last reasonably priced apartments in this whole area, and I haven't raised my rent since 2008. After COVID hit, I had to raise it. Landlords and tenants can't really afford that big of a hit and stay in business.
That's the truth, and that's what my colleagues on the other side of the aisle continue to say. They're the ones that get up in arms about rental prices and housing prices, but the policies they continue to push and implement contradict that. And yes, I mean, you can't, landlords and business owners can't eat these costs, but they expect that these landlords and businesses have these empty pockets. You've seen it with the good cause eviction. You saw it during COVID when you couldn't evict people who weren't paying their bills. And just one thing after another. It's just no common sense comes from the other side of the aisle on these types of policies and a whole host of policies.
We're going to get to some other comments in just a second, but let's take a break. I realize we're running just a little bit late. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
The holiday season has arrived, a time where more than ever our thoughts turn gratefully to those who serve our community and those all around us. May the holiday season end the present year on a cheerful note and make way for a fresh and bright new year. Here's wishing you a happy holidays. This holiday greeting is brought to you by our friends at Tom South Corning Collision, Sheddon's Wholesale, Suburban Propane, Corning Building Company, Empire Bricks, Hector Wine Company, and Apple Ridge Senior Living.
Oh, better tasting is better for the planet.
That's great, sir. Can I take your order?
Oh, number 3.
At Culligan, we get that most people don't think about water like we do, and that's okay. You see, when we install our drinking water and softening systems, we're thinking about filtering contaminants and the minerals that make water hard. So you can just think about softer, cleaner, better tasting water. At Culligan, we think about your water, so you don't have to.
Call today to schedule your free water test.
Heather and I had an argument just like any other couple. I was lost and lonely. I had snapped, I had a gun, and I was going to take my own life. Heather helped me realize that there was still life to live. For the better of myself, my family, my weapon is now safely put away.
My son, Ricky, took his life by the use of a firearm. It broke me in ways that I never knew that I could be broken. And I contemplated suicide. Afterwards, we found out his girlfriend, she was pregnant. If that was my grandson, I was gonna have to be here for him. I still own my firearm. I keep it in a safe because I want to keep my grandson and myself safe.
A moment of crisis can happen to anyone.
Store your gun securely, locked, unloaded, and away from ammo.
The Big Fox website is here now. WYDCTV.com. Local and national news that keeps you informed and involved. WYDCTV.com. Today's weather, up to date and in your town. WYDCTV.com. Sports news, local events, and health stories that affect you. WYDCTV.com. The Big Fox website. Your news here now. WYDCTV.com.
Thank you again to Boss Security and Horsesteads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning, and this is the Steuben Senior Services Fund section of our program. And in the studio, Assemblyman Phil Palmisano, a couple comments from viewers. Last one out of New York, please turn off the lights. This is what the Democrats are doing. It feels that way at times, doesn't it?
The lights may already be off before they leave.
Yeah, exactly.
With the policies,
exactly.
Unfortunately.
Okay, this is a great question. It ties in very timely. Hi, Phil. Is there any way to get New York State to participate anticipate more with the incoming administration to help with the removal of criminal illegal immigrants, besides threatening to withhold federal funding?
Yes, there's two simple things that could happen right away. Number one, the mayor of New York City can get rid of their sanctuary city policy. I know he's talked about wanting to cooperate with the administration coming in to get rid of illegal migrants who commit crimes. The other one is Governor Hochul, with the stroke of a pen, can remove our sanctuary state status because Governor Cuomo previously implemented basically a sanctuary state status by basically saying that local law enforcement and local officials could not cooperate with federal ICE officials when identifying criminal illegal migrants. And the fact of the matter, we just sent a letter. My colleague Jared Gandolfo.
I was just going to mention this. I have it in front of me, as a matter of fact. Go ahead.
Yeah, we sent a letter. We have legislation that would stop it, but we sent a letter to the governor recently, a number of us, saying you could do this with the stroke of a pen. You said you want those who commit crimes out of the state. You can do this. You have the power to do it right now.
Yeah, did you see her tough talking where she said, if they do something illegal, I'll be the first to call?
Yeah. But she can do something right now. Exactly. And right now, in the letter we cited, right now in New York State, there's 58,000 illegal migrants who have committed felonies or crimes. They should be out the door right now. Wow, and 1,000 of them have identified with gangs. I mean, give me a break.
The young people that are getting involved with that?
Yes, it's crazy.
Being recruited by gangs because they can't get in trouble. It's a double-edged, it's a constant go.
Well, they know because of the issues like raise the age, they're not going to be penalized because we really lower the penalties on those individuals. So they're the ones doing the nasty crimes, so they know there's not going to be significant penalties for them. So you have that, you have the quality of life, you have the public safety, and the economic costs. I mean, New York State, we know what New York City is spending billions of dollars a year on it.
$4.3 billion.
$4.3 billion from the state.
Yeah, that's from
the city. But the city's spending their own money. $4.3 billion that we spent over the past 2 budget cycles. Frank, and to our viewers, that's more than we spend on our veterans, our seniors, and our homeless combined. That's despicable. Just more misplaced priorities. Those aren't just misplaced. Those are terrible priorities. The public doesn't want this. The public wants action. So yes, to the viewer, there's a lot we could do. It starts with the mayor getting rid of the sanctuary city status. That's going to be tougher because of the city council. But Governor Hochul can just, with the stroke of a pen today, back up what she says. Talk is cheap. Action speaks louder than words. And she can do that with the stroke of a pen to get rid of that executive order. So now our local law enforcement officials can cooperate with federal ICE officials so we can remove criminal migrants.
Do you think, I asked Sheriff Allard this, we had him on the program Wednesday, do you think after November 5th that Hochul and Democrats in Albany learned any type of lesson? And this ties into what I'm saying here. You know public safety was a major issue. And look at the inroads that Trump made in the state.
Oh, yeah.
It's remarkable. I mean, I don't know if they're not concerned, but look at how good Lee Zeldin did last time. You had those all come out. Are they nervous about the governor's race? Are they going to wake up and say, let's make some actual bail reform changes? Or do you think they're just going to keep up the same thing?
I think Governor Hochul is going to do so much to protect her left flank. Because when she became governor, she used to be, she used to have an A rating with an NRA. As soon as she was named governor, she turned to the left and ran and hasn't looked back, just like Senator Gillibrand did the same thing. And that's unfortunate. So hopefully they're listening. Hopefully they take something away. But the numbers didn't spoke well. President Trump won, and his numbers improved dramatically in the cities. Dramatically, if you looked at it. And it wasn't just in New York; it was across the country. When they were looking at, especially Pennsylvania, they saw the gap has closed so much, and like these Philadelphia and Pennsylvania. So he made an impact. And yes, I hope they're listening. They should be listening. But then you see some of these places like Denver. California and Boston saying we're doubling down on this issue with the migrants.
$25 million that Gavin Newsom spent to protect the state against Trump with lawsuits. They're not learning their lesson.
No.
And we talked about it with Joe yesterday. We talked about, are they doing soul searching? And we talked about it at the national level. I don't see from Governor Hochul, hence the press conference she gave the day after the election, which was so cringeworthy. They haven't learned their lesson.
No, and I think we'll see those priorities when she presents her State of the State and budget next month, which is going to be another challenging year.
The 14th, I think.
Yeah, State of the 14th, and then the budget will probably come 2 weeks after that. A lot of people ask me how things in Albany. I go, good, because we're not there.
Exactly.
When we're not there, there's less damage can be done. Although there are regulations that are being proposed on a regular basis that are damaging that we have to continue to speak out on. But we'll get her budget situation. But what they've done in the budget, this budget that we're going into, we spend way too much money. Since one party control took over in 2019, our budget has increased $66 billion spending.
Wow.
Or 38%. I mean, this is mind-blowing. We're also looking at out-year budget deficits of $14.3 billion over the next 3 budget cycles. So we have to be, it's unsustainable spending that we can't continue. I mean, I think sometimes my colleagues in Albany forget that it's the people's money. It's not their money, but they spend it like it's their own money, but it's the people's money they're spending, and we need to be cognizant of that and make sure we're prioritizing our spending. So not $4.3 billion in criminal migrants, which is illegal migrants who are here in our state, and we're just going to be spending more and more of that next month.
So what you're saying is you don't have a lot of hope for the budget, or you're always so optimistic. So I know
I'm optimistic because you hope they listen, but we'll see what the budget negotiations come from there, and we'll speak out on those issues and make sure the priorities that should be addressed there, and we'll speak out on those priorities. But I'm very concerned because their priorities seem to be misplaced and misaligned.
Absolutely. Before we go, Phil, and this is kind of a great question from a viewer because I'm having deja vu here. I think this is perhaps the first question I ever asked you almost 20 years ago now when you were on the radio. Does Phil think that New York will ever allow fracking under the current administration?
No, they will not, because it was banned legally in the state. But we should. And I'm not saying we should be doing it in the Finger Lakes.
Was it Harris even? Harris was supporting fracking.
Yeah.
On paper.
Before she opposed it, or
exactly.
After she opposed it.
Yeah.
But it's unfortunate. We should, because we have so much abundance of energy, natural gas, we should be utilizing. But they don't even want us to extract it. They don't want us to use it. Yeah. That's the problem.
Well, maybe if Hochul keeps going down this road where the public safety gets worse and taxes go up, maybe she can save herself in the governor's race by saying, "Oh, we're going to let fracking happen."
Yeah, she won't do that.
She won't do that. Let's take a short break. Thanks, Phil. Thanks for being so honest. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
The holiday season has arrived, a time where more than ever our thoughts turn gratefully to those who serve our community and those all around us. May the holiday season end the present year on a cheerful note and make way for a fresh and bright new year. Here's wishing you a happy holidays. This holiday greeting is brought to you by our friends at Tom South Corning Collision, Sheddon's Wholesale, Suburban Propane, Corning Building Company, Empire Bricks, Hector Wine Company, and Apple Ridge Senior Living.
Oh, better tasting is better for the planet.
That's great, sir. Can I take your order?
Oh, number 3.
At Culligan, we get that most people don't think about water like we do, and that's okay. You see, when we install our drinking water and softening systems, we're thinking about filtering contaminants and the minerals that make water hard. So you can just think about softer, cleaner, better tasting water. At Culligan, we think about your water, so you don't have to.
Call today to schedule your free water test.
Heather and I had an argument just like any other couple. I was lost and lonely. I had snapped. I had a gun and I was going to take my own life. Heather helped me realize that there was still life to live. For the better of myself, my family, my weapon is now safely put away.
My son, Ricky, took his life by the use of a firearm. It broke me in ways that I never knew that I could be broken. And I contemplated suicide. Afterwards, we found out his girlfriend, she was pregnant. If that was my grandson, I was gonna have to be here for him. I still own my firearm. I keep it in a safe because I want to keep my grandson and myself safe.
A moment of crisis can happen to anyone.
Store your gun securely, locked, unloaded, and away from ammo.
The Fox website is here now. WYDCTV.com. Local and national news that keeps you informed and involved. WYDCTV.com. Today's weather, up to date and in your town. WYDCTV.com. Sports news, local events, and health stories that affect you. WYDCTV.com. The Big Fox website. Your news here now. WYDCTV.com.
Thank you to Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back with Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street. And this is the Steuben Senior Services Fund section of our program. And Assemblyman Phil Palmisano is in the studio. Phil, we got a lot of questions coming in. Think of how many small businesses would be lost if they're forced to mow a lawn or trim trees with electricity or battery-powered machines. I mean, that's a good point. You think of how many landscaping businesses there are. Where will you bury all the batteries when they are dead? That's a really dangerous part that people don't realize with those batteries.
Oh, I mean, the solar recycling and what you're going to do with that. The windmills, the blades, they're fiberglass. They have to go in the landfill. The battery, I mean, we're going to see, they're going to need battery storage. I mean, you're going to have an abundance of battery fields. Yeah. And that's why I don't want to see Steuben County and other counties turn into, we see solar proliferation, windmill proliferation. Yeah. We want battery, I mean, taking prime ag land, and these things start on fire.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we talk about the batteries. I mean, last year there were 3 battery storage fires across the state of New York. That's not good for the environment.
No.
So, yes, I mean, and then the costs, I said it before to the business owner who spoke to that, or other business owners. Mm-hmm. Businesses care, just like homeowners, they care about 2 things when it comes to their energy policy: affordable and reliable. And if they can't get affordable and reliable energy in New York, they're going to go elsewhere.
And to your point, this comment was going to be the next one I read from a different viewer, as well as the blades to the ugly wind turbines that ruin Cohocton Valley.
Oh, the blades. I mean, I think there's ways they shred them, but it's problematic. No one wants to look at the end use of this stuff. I mean, because they could be left on people's properties. Like, I think some people work to try to put bond. There should be bonding on these things to make sure for the cleanup. But I'm just concerned you have this proliferation and there's no end use for end of life use. So these things don't last forever, but they are very, very toxic.
Next question or comment, really. Democrat Party needs to roll up their sleeves and reinvent themselves moving forward. They can't try to spend their way of governing into righteousness, and get back down to reality instead of pie in the sky issues. That goes for Albany and the federal level. You know, when you're talking about re-election or the election, excuse me. Ken from Horseheads writes, if politicians were not allowed to be involved in managing their or their family's financial portfolios, positioning themselves to make money when laws are passed, they wouldn't have an incentive to push things like climate change initiatives. There may be something to that. Anyway, I won't have you answer on that. We've got so many things to talk about, but I wanted to mention, and we brought this up earlier in the week. It must have been earlier in the week, and I don't understand this unless because it would be positive for upstate that the governor vetoed the Rural Suicide Council. Why? I don't understand it.
I'm still trying to understand it, Frank. I don't understand it. I was interviewed with I think the local paper about it. I'm just very angry about it.
Yeah.
First, I mean, I think of Joe Tobey and the Tobia family. Mm-hmm. The amount of work they put into this bill, the calls, the emails, the meetings he sent, just took the tragedy of the loss of their son and tried to make it better for other families. And this would have made it better. This would have saved lives to put the spotlight on this issue. I mean, the suicide rate in rural areas is double of our urban areas. Wow. This Rural Suicide Council would have looked to identify barriers to mental health support. Would have looked at mental health capacity, peer support, would have looked at identifying vulnerable populations and tried to implement policies and practices to help reduce rural suicide. But it would have been a work in progress and constantly working on it. The governor vetoed this. She lumped it in with 29 other bills and said that it should be part of the budget. It's spending too much. There was not going to spend a lot of money on this. This should have been taken separately, given the impact. It's about saving lives. And so she says they're going to come back and do other stuff. She won't.
No.
And this is just really unfortunate. This bill should have been passed. And I think one of the quotes Joe Tobia used in one of the stories, he goes, "There's no reason why this governor shouldn't sign this bill." I sent those over and over the week when the governor had the bill. Like, I agree with Joe.
Yeah.
There's no reason why she shouldn't have signed it, and she didn't, and she vetoed it, and it's just really, really wrong.
I just don't understand it. I mean, out of all the money we spend, we talk about the Hollywood tax credits. We talk about all these things that we're wasting money on. To me, many viewers said this when I brought it up, it's probably because it has rural in the beginning and it's upstate,
Well, and she lumps it in as 29 other bills. They should be looking at that as an individual bill. Her veto basically covered all of them at the same time.
Right.
And it's just wrong, and I don't understand it. It's just, she should have never vetoed this bill.
Nope.
This bill would have saved lives, but apparently that doesn't matter to this administration. So the fight doesn't end. I know Joe and families in it, we are in it, and we're going to continue to push. And I know when we question the mental health commissioner at the budget hearings, this is going to be the one main questions I'm going to bring up. Why did the governor veto this bill?
Yeah. Because there is no real justification for it.
There is none.
No.
None.
Now, this is something completely different, but we were talking about, getting away from gas in your house to electricity. I had this from Empire Report earlier in the week, and it blew my mind. So mandating sprinkler systems in new homes. Oh, yeah. Won't that look beautiful in your house? You go to to like an office building, you see those sprinklers. Where is this coming from?
Well, it's the Codes Council under the Department of State, under the governor's purview.
Yeah.
They have this regulation they want to put in place again. So even when we're not in Albany, damage can be done. This regulation is pending. Estimates say it will increase the cost of new home construction by $30,000.
Yeah.
Let there be consumer choice. The same thing with your gas stoves and boilers and vehicles. Let there be consumer choice on this. I mean, there's an education program that people have to talk about this and give educational information to people to purchase them. But the mandate would increase the cost significantly. Home costs have increased 41% from 2019 to 2023. From 2020, mortgage rates have increased 200%. We know the cost of home ownership is increasing. It's out of the reach. And with inflation and everything else, and then something like this would just make it that much more difficult. When the state says we have a housing crisis and we need more homes for families, this will put it out of reach, especially new family homes, and it just doesn't make any sense. It's just another unfunded mandate that's being proposed from Albany.
Well, think about that. The people that scrimp and save to reach the American dream, and they're going to build their house, their dream house, and then they're being told they have to have sprinkler systems?
Yes.
That added cost on top of what is already the biggest investment of your life?
People can make the decision for themselves. If they want it, then they do it. But to mandate it and then increase the cost of housing by that much, and again, taking into consideration, I think the number I saw from the research, 41% single-family homes costs have increased 41% from 2019 to 2023. Take that on top of the 200% increase in mortgage rates. Owning a home is out of touch for many families, and you saw with the inflationary impacts, it makes it much more difficult. And now to add this in on it, so hopefully Governor Hochul speaks to her Department of State and this council, say back off on this. If the legislature wanted this, the legislature will pass it. The legislature doesn't want it, because even I saw some of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle send a letter to the governor, some upstate members recently saying, into the Codes Council, to say, do not move forward on this. This is not legislative intent, and I agree 100%.
Yeah, it's disingenuous if you push something like this when you're talking about affordable housing and you talk about the housing crisis, right? It's just going to cause another person that doesn't want to move out of maybe their apartment because they can't afford this new cost. There's so many of these.
Well, we got the increase of full electrification for new buildings and new homes, right?
Yeah.
Then we're going to throw this on top of it. I mean, why not? Yeah. It's only another $30,000.
Yeah, it's only. And quickly before we go to our next break, I not quickly. We can talk about it as long as you want, but I want to talk about the regents delaying the vote that would allow boys and girls to play on teams of opposite sex if no team sport is for their gender. This is something that really became an issue during the election. A lot of people have been talking about it. Explain this to.
Yeah, this is actually a lot of people talked about. The transgender issue of biological boys participating in female sports. I mean, and this doesn't have anything to do with transgender.
That's interesting.
It is interesting, and the vote came up a few months ago and got tabled. What this would do, this proposal the regents were considering, saying, say there's a sport in the school district that doesn't have a boys
so field hockey, let's say.
Field hockey, volleyball, even swimming. It doesn't matter what it is. So if the girls had the sport,
the boys are
and the boys didn't, the boys would be allowed to participate in the girls' sport, and vice versa. But it's a little different thing, I would think.
Yes,
because we do see some females playing boys' sports. Different. But this is different.
Yeah,
we know about the difference in that would be devastating in my opinion. We should not allow that. And the fact that they tabled the votes, hopefully a positive sign. We don't need to move forward on this. But I know even the New York State Public High School Association came out in opposition to it. The issue we talked about during the campaign with Prop 1, and I mean, that's still out there at pass, and that's going to be something we're going to deal with. But this is different from that. This would just say, if there's not a sport available for boys, volleyball, field hockey, whatever it may be, it could be softball.
Yeah.
Usually they play baseball, softball, so you'd be able to have males playing in those sports. If there's not a male softball team or a male volleyball team, that's wrong.
And you talk about the dangers of it, but think of how unfair it is for the other teams they're playing. So if the other school does have boys swimming and a girl swimming, and then all of a sudden this team doesn't, the guys are facing the girl, that doesn't make sense.
Right. Well, think about the
logistics.
The Corning girls won softball state championship.
Yeah, yeah.
Can you imagine if they were playing a team full of boys?
Yeah.
You know, or some 3 or 4 boys. It's not right. And thank God the Regents delayed the vote. Shouldn't happen. We shouldn't let them sports mix like that.
Absolutely. We got to take a short break. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox will be right back.
Attention, Elmeron may lead to vision loss.
If you have suffered vision problems after taking Elmeron to treat bladder pain, call the Hearn Law Firm. Elmeron may be responsible for your vision problems, and you may deserve compensation for your injuries.
If you took Elmeron and now have vision problems, call the Hearn Law Firm at 888-308-3866 right now. You could find out if you qualify in less than 2 minutes. Call 888-308-3866 for your free case review.
Y'all got a lot of stuff here in your water.
You're never gonna believe it, but this can filter up to 60 different contaminants from your water.
It's all about cleaner drinking water.
Dude, that's good water.
And that's good water.
Now that's good water.
That's good water, eh?
No matter where you live, there's a Culligan water expert nearby. At Culligan, we think about your water, so you don't have to.
Call today to schedule your free water test.
I'm Jonathan Lawson. If you're 50 to 85, please listen closely. The lock I want to talk to you about isn't the one on your door. It's a rate lock for your life insurance that guarantees that once you're insured, your rate can never go up at any time for any reason. Many policies you see don't have one, but you can get a lifetime rate lock from Colonial Penn. This plan was designed for people on a fixed income.
Thank you again to Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact Boss Security for all your business and home security needs. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio, and this is the Steuben Senior Services Fund section of the program. And in the studio, Assemblyman Phil Palmisano. Phil, a couple comments from viewers. The electric grid can't support their ideas, maybe only if they get nuclear power. That would take decades to install and build. Their short-term thinking is only to get votes in their minds, not votes in reality.
Yeah. Well, it's true. And I'll tell you, nuclear has to be part of the equation.
Yeah.
That's the part, the article that we talked about, the Cornell professor, the NISO talked about this too. By 2040, we have to have a massive build out of the grid. Our total generating capacity with wind, solar, hydro, natural gas, nuclear is 41 gigawatts. And for the viewer, 1 gigawatt is the equivalent of power in 750,000 homes.
Okay.
So our total generating capacity is 41 gigawatts. We need to build out to 120 gigawatts by 2040. But out of that, 27 to 45 gigawatts has to be dispatchable, emission-free resources. What does dispatchable mean? It means it's available 24/7. Natural gas is dispatchable. Nuclear is dispatchable. Wind and solar is not dispatchable. So they don't know what it's going to be. It's identified as future resources, but they don't know. Is it going to be renewable natural gas? Could it be renewable propane? Can it be hydrogen? Can it be carbon capture and sequestration? Can it be nuclear? And nuclear needs to be a part of the equation, hands down. And the technology is evolving. It's going to take some time. And that's why we don't tear down the bridge before you build a new one. So, and I think the governor's coming around and is recognizing nuclear needs to be part of the equation. I even had a colleague of mine who's a socialist, Democrat socialist, said, what do I think about nuclear power? I think nuclear is a good thing. We should be looking at that. And there's the technology is evolving where we hopefully have the advanced nuclear where you have the small modular, you put them together. But that's a ways away. We need to put effort into the resource and research and development on it so we can develop that resource because it's clean, but it's also dispatchable 24/7.
Good point. Another comment. What about the large number of people that want to build homes in rural areas that are on wells? Wells require a pump. The first thing they do in a fire is turn off electricity. To run the pump that would feed the sprinkler system would require a generator and a separate pump. Good point. Thank you. How about this? Maybe if enough people move out of New York, they won't need as much electricity for all their ideas. So there's a silver lining, Phil. And finally, this has been coming up a lot, and people have been wanting me to ask. I'm glad that someone sent a reminder today. Will Prop 1 be challenged in any way? And also, for one of the reasons, due to how it was presented on the ballot. Remember, it was very misleading, I think, on the ballot.
Very misleading.
Yeah. Do you think it'll be challenged?
I honestly, taking into consideration I'm not a lawyer or a constitutional expert, I just don't see it happening because it was a constitutional amendment that was on the ballot that had to be approved, and I just don't see how it could be, but Yeah, you never know, but I just don't. I'm not a lawyer, a constitutional expert. I just don't see how that can be done since it was a constitution amendment approved by the voters.
Yep.
Unfortunately.
So I want to mention this, and this is an interesting question. Who will the Republicans tap to run for governor? It's a little early on that. There's some names being thrown around.
There are some names. My former colleague, Congressman Mike Lawler, has been thrown around a lot. He's been. I'm not on social media. My son follows. He's been following him. He goes, he's going to be the guy, Dad. And
I think so. He's been saying some things that makes me feel that way, and your son's got a good record on that.
Yes, he does. So he told me he's taking a political science class, and they had to do this prediction for the presidential race, and he perfectly predicted the outcome of the race, the electoral college, the states, and everything. So
wow.
So he seems to like politics.
Keep him away from here. He'll take my job.
I don't know about that, but he seems to have an interest in politics. But he said, and Mike Lawler is the guy. But Mike's a very. I have a great deal of respect for him. He works so hard. I mean, he's just an incredible debater. A very good spokesperson for our principles and ideas. So he could be one of the guys that come forward. Who else?
There'll probably be quite a few.
Yeah, I'm sure. But hopefully, whoever it is, they come out early. Mm-hmm. We need to build this. It has to be a 2-year campaign because I think starting in January next year would be too late.
And I think that's one of the problems. I don't want to get on a tangent, but the Republicans have had in the past, so we do wait too late. Because we always struggle with the name recognition because obviously Hochul's the governor now, right? But it will be interesting if that Tory, right, is that his last name? Maybe primary.
Richie Torres.
Yeah, Torres, thank you. Maybe primarying her. And there's a couple other names being thrown around.
There's a few names being thrown around out there.
I would like to see a little bit of that, kind of mess up things before she has to, or whoever has to go.
Spend some money there.
Yeah. Okay, so I wanted to mention this. I had not heard about this. It's on... I think Empire Report late last night. Advocates are pushing for parole reforms, and this is elder parole bill. What is this?
Oh my God,
is that good?
This is terrible. Right now, obviously, think about first when someone's denied parole, the maximum time they can be separate between parole hearings is 24 months. We've had legislation that would give it at the discretion of the parole board up to 60 months. I think back to the Roby family when they lost their son, they came up to Albany and advocated for this change, and the Democrats in Albany stymied it, wouldn't let it happen. So now they come up with this bill called elder parole. What elder parole is that if you're 55 years old and have served 15 years of your sentence, you would automatically come up for parole.
Okay.
So think about it. You're 40 years old, brutally murder and rape a child.
Yeah.
Sentenced to 30 years to life in prison. But just after 15 years, now you'd be able to come up for
just
a parole hearing?
For a year. It's just based on years, not about... That doesn't make any sense.
And now the proponents say, well, it doesn't mean that you're going to get released. It just means they have that opportunity. But yeah, you're forgetting what it does to that family. The Roby family and others have to go through that hearing every 2 years. It's like reliving that tragedy over and over again. It's mind-blowing to me. We had this debate in the committee last year or the year before on this bill. There was an individual who basically was like 37 years old, who basically took a baby and threw the baby on the floor, killed the baby.
Oh my gosh!
And was like almost 40. So they would serve. The judge says you should never get out of prison, but yet this person can come up for parole in 15 years. And
can we just trust the judges at some
point?
Yes,
I know. And then think about this. Here's the other one. I'm going to use the word scumbag, racist shooter who went to Buffalo and murdered people.
Yeah.
He would be eligible for parole. He'd be eligible for parole at the age of 55. I said that in the committee. So you guys are okay with that?
Wow.
And they admitted that person would be eligible for parole under the language of the bill they passed. This is so out of touch, so misplaced.
Do you think there's a chance for this? I mean,
they advocate every year. They come up there. They're on the streets. You see the signs posted out some of my colleagues' offices. They try to advocate this stuff. I would hope to God if it ever got to governor, she would veto it. But hopefully it doesn't come up. But it did pass. It didn't pass on the floor. It did come up in committee vote. They didn't bring it to the floor. But we have all these examples of these people who heinous murders at like 37, 38, 39, 40 years old. And again, 40-year-old could brutally murder and rape a child, but yet be eligible for parole 15 years, even though they were sentenced to 30 years to life in prison. That's wrong.
This goes back to they haven't learned the lesson about public safety. And we not even joking about it with Sheriff Allard. Every time you guys are in session, we're nervous,
right?
Because you don't know which way they're going to make it less safe on the streets.
Well, the criminal justice policies that have been passed and implemented in the state of New York by the one-party control has been devastating. Bail reform, discovery, raise the age, less is more, these types of proposals. The HALT Act, which basically puts our corrections officers under constant assault inside our correctional facilities. Unfortunately, the Democrats in Albany on one-party control are more interested in protecting the interests of criminals than they are law-abiding citizens, crime victims and their family, and our dedicated law enforcement personnel, both on the streets and inside our correctional facilities, and that's wrong.
Speaking of public safety, because I do believe this is a public safety issue, are there any updates on sticker stores?
No, I mean, there needs to be some action. I mean, more action in different places. I mean, I would say right here, and I'll say it out loud on TV, Steuben County needs to do a better job, period. And I'm sorry if you don't like me saying this on TV, they need to do a better job. Schuyler County is doing a great job. They Watkins Glen, they got them all out because they have a proactive, a collaborative approach with our law enforcement and working in a way to address these issues. Chemung County is passing laws and getting our law enforcement about. Steuben County needs to do the same thing, in my opinion, and I plan on talking to our county leaders about doing more than that, because this is just, quite frankly, a scourge in our communities. There should not be sticker stores operating in our communities. And for sticker stores, if you're wondering, it's basically they're operating legal. They're selling marijuana, but what they do is they sell it onto the guys that they give you a T-shirt or a sticker, but then they give you marijuana along with it. It's basically illegal sales of marijuana. When we passed this law, we legalized marijuana sales in New York State. There's a system. You're supposed to be certified. You're supposed to get a license. These people are avoiding, I didn't support it. I thought there would be problems with it. We are seeing problems with it, but this is a way around that, and we should shut these places down. They shouldn't be open. If they get shut down by Office of OCM, Office of Cannabis Management is worthless. They have no teeth. We need to provide teeth. We had legislation. We had all law enforcement from the 3-county area came and talked to us. We need to make criminal penalties for these things, and there are criminal penalties that can be if they go and if there's a seal or a lock on the door that someone puts on them, the local law enforcement puts on it, then that's a criminal penalty, and you can go after them. There's things that can be done, and there should be done, and I think we need to have a more collaborative approach, especially here in Steuben.
Yeah, we're not doing it. And I mean, like you said in Schuyler with Watkins, I would add that Mayor DiNardo, who is a Democrat, she's like Elliot Ness in the old days.
She shut them right down.
Yeah, she's doing a great job.
They're being aggressive over in Chemung County. I mean, the county passing, because what can happen is the county can pass and designate an enforcement agent. And the cities they have the ability to do it. So they're doing a double approach. They got the county and the city is designating their local law enforcement. Quite frankly, I think our cities should do the same. And I think our county should designate, have our law enforcement more involved with this situation.
I agree.
I think weights and measures is for some reason the enforcement
people
agency.
Don't believe me when I say that. Yeah.
I just don't understand it. And I'm going to have further conversations. I probably shouldn't have said all this on TV, but
I say that every morning.
But I'm very concerned about this. This is about quality of life.
It is.
There needs to be a more collaborative approach. We need to be working together to get this done.
Yeah, and we've had the conversation here before, so I wouldn't worry about it. We had the sheriff on Wednesday, and he's ready and willing. He wants to be a part of it.
I talked to him about this too. I talked to the county manager about it. I know that he wants to do something about it. So it's just let's get all hands on deck approach to do something.
All right, we've been talking a lot about bad stuff today, haven't we? So let's talk about some good stuff, Phil. I can't believe you're going to tell us how many years this has been, but I look forward to this every year. We have a Salvation Army telethon coming up because I'm a big supporter of the Salvation Army. You're going to be a part of that broadcast, but you have the big competition. It's almost the Ali Frazier of our generation. Tell us about it.
Oh yeah, this is great. I mean, after an election, elections can be divisive, election can be bitter, but we started this, the Corning City Democrats and the Corning City Republicans started this after 2009. We're going to be doing our 16th year of ours. We call it the Salvation Army Bell Ringing Challenge. One day the Democrats ring the bell, one day the Republicans ring the bell, and see who can make the most money on that day. Just a friendly competition.
It's always fun.
Yeah. I know who won all of them. We haven't won them all. We have lost some.
Oh, have you?
But yes, it doesn't matter because it's all for a good cause. No. We never, quite frankly, announce publicly who wins because that's not what it's about. But it's a friendly bell ringing challenge. It's nice. I've had, good fun. Some Democrats come by and put money in the door, and we try to do the same thing once in a while.
I've had to donate to Democrats first time in my life.
You have to walk down the street, and plus you're on the board. So
on the board. It doesn't matter. I have to get to everybody.
Absolutely.
But Democrats are on the 16th. Correct me.
That is correct. Democrats.
And
I think from 1 to 7.
Okay, 1 to 7.
It's a different time this year. So 1 to 7 on Monday the 16th, and 1 to 7 on Tuesday the 17th. So please come out. We don't care who you support, but come out and
Support the Salvation Army.
Yep.
That's it.
Absolutely.
Phil, thanks for giving us so much time this morning. I know I'll see you before, but Merry Christmas.
You too, and Merry Christmas to all the listeners and viewers at home.
All right. Join us on Monday with Frankly Speaking, only on Big Fox.
The holiday season has arrived, a time where more than ever our thoughts turn gratefully to those who serve our community and those all around us. May the holiday season end the present year on a cheerful note and make way for a fresh and bright new year. Here's wishing you a happy holidays. This holiday greeting is brought to you by our friends at Tom South Corning Collision, Sheddon's Wholesale, Suburban Propane, Corning Building Company, Empire Bricks, Hector Wine Company, and Apple Ridge Senior Living.
you.